Hello, Rhys. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, Mr. Soup. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. In the middle of moving, so lots of books have already gone from the office, but far too many are yet to be moved, I'm sorry to say. Anyway, we're not here to talk about my back. We're here to talk about a topic which for many is a defining case study in terms of international heritage relations. It's with regards to the Elgin or the Parthenon Marbles. At best, this is a very heated discussion on the international stage, both by governments but also by, for example, heritage workers and other interested parties. But at worst, this is a really acrimonious argument. Now, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of this debate, but briefly, can you just outline some of the history surrounding the acquisition of the Parthenon Marbles?
Certainly. Well, Lord Elgin was the ambassador from the United Kingdom to the Ottoman Empire, which owned the Greek territories at this time. He made an arrangement to record and purchase these marbles and return them to the United Kingdom, where they were then purchased by the British Parliament for the British Museum, and that's where they've stayed.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is this. The Greek people and the government want the marbles back. The United Nations has been talking about this topic for quite a while as well. It's a very deeply legal issue in an international sense. So there has been a lot of discussion, and it is really a one-of-a-kind situation in some respects.
Okay. Now, for my part, I have to say, I flip and flop between thinking that the Elgin or Parthenon marbles should be returned and that they should be kept in situ as they are at the moment. Now, I suppose my first point that I would say actually is this is not actually a unique situation. For example, the British museums in Paris, in New York, Berlin, they're crammed with artifacts from other countries and from other cultures. Why shouldn't these artifacts be relinquished? Why shouldn't they be returned to their countries of origin? Or in particular, with regards to the Parthenon marbles, sorry.
Certainly. Well, to start off with, I would argue that they were legally purchased at that time. There was no United Nations or international trade agreements back then concerning this kind of thing. So the issue I find is that there was a legal purchase. Now the buyer wants back. I can understand that, and there is moral ground for asking for them back. There's moral ground for them coming back to Greece, but we've got to look at the deeper issue here as to why Greece wants them back now. For example, and this is the thing that I find, is that it's a custody battle. It's a parental custody battle between two parents. And the issue at the moment, I find, is if you look at the marbles as the child, what is the best interest of the child? What is the best interest of the marbles themselves? What's going to allow them to survive? And turning them to Greece, in my opinion, won't guarantee their safety in a lot of ways. And I have many, many examples supporting that theory. Okay. Would you like to hear one?
Yeah, go on then.
Sure. Well, this is from the International Greek Archaeological Authority. Greece has severely cut their budget concerning antiquities. Even the International Association of Greek Archaeologists have been fuming, saying that the austerity measures are hurting the National Archaeological Museum. Maria Tazanaka is a security guard that used to work there. She's not been paid in 10 months. How can they be paid to protect things like the Elgin marbles when even their security hasn't been paid in such a long time due to the austerity measures? This leads me to believe that the Greek nation cannot afford at this time to take the Elgin marbles back. It's more of an emotional decision more than anything else. It's not a decision based on best practice, I don't believe.
Right. Okay. Now you say that this is like an argument between parents over and the marbles of the children in this custody battle, but Britain, the British Museum, is not one of the parents here. The marbles were made by a sculptor in Athens. And they were taken from Athens. In some ways, actually, arguably, Britain is like a step parent who purchased the child, maybe on the black market, but nonetheless did purchase the child. Now, you say that perhaps Greece can't afford to, or don't have the capacity to at the moment look after the marbles effectively, but in recent days, for example, Amal Clooney, the wife of George Clooney, and I have to say I really don't like the way that everyone has to justify her as being George Clooney's wife. She's a very very well respected lawyer in her own right.
One of the best.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah. Well, recently she has really taken up this cause, and she went on a trip to Athens, saw the Parthenon, and saw the museum which is in place, and actually the spaces which are reserved at the moment for the Parthenon marbles. They're ready. They're waiting. Again, why shouldn't they be returned?
Well, they're ready and waiting, but so is a lot of other people. For example, people who make a living off of black market antiques. That industry is rife in Greece. It's one of the worst areas worldwide. For example, we've had over 500 attempted or successful thefts of artifacts from 1990 from archaeological sites and museums in Greece, and they're the recorded ones. So
true, but over the years, the care of the Elgin marbles hasn't been exactly pristine. A skylight falling from the ceiling has damaged them. We've had children, say in the 1960s, famously, two boys snapped the leg off a centaur. You've got the cleaning techniques used by the museum, and actually also by Elgin's team themselves. It was brutal. They prized them off the monument, got rid of concretions and cement using really rather crude tools. You can't necessarily just argue in terms of the ongoing state of preservation and care. I mean, it's not like we've done that good a job. I mean, I suppose the flip side of that would be to say that okay, they at the time they were on a military base and they were being used as target practice, pot shots, and okay, they haven't been shot at, but they've certainly been subject to damage.
Certainly, and I won't disagree with you on that at all. Over the past century, archaeology and curation has come in leaps and bounds. Admittedly, back over the last century and into the 17th and 18th century, there were some horrible things done to antiques. Absolutely horrible. I'm not denying that whatsoever, but I am saying that now, in the immediate future, what is the best way to protect the marbles from further damage? Is the British Museum better equipped? Maybe it is. I'm not even saying that the British Museum should keep them. I'm saying that they need to be looked after from a world point of view. It's not a view of Greece versus Britain. It is a view purely that I believe all archaeologists should take, that these artifacts are part of the world's history, part of people's history worldwide, and they need to go somewhere that they will be protected in every way possible. And I believe that UNESCO has a major role to play in that. For example, UNESCO could fund putting the marbles back and protecting them and not leaving that protection so much just to Greece. That I would agree to. Even setting up an entire museum somewhere, a location that isn't maybe so well known for black market antiques, which, by the way, even up until recently, there were 300 artifacts taken from Corinth in the last 2 years. Off an archaeological site. So that just goes to justify the point. Now,
well, hang on. Just for a moment then. Are you saying then as an Australian that you'd be quite happy if circumstances were just so? You'd be quite happy if someone was to say take the Sydney Opera House for care and preservation if Australians couldn't apparently look after it. Let's say I don't know. Let's say Britain decided to do that. We're taking your opera house because of your Aussies clearly can't look after it. It's the best thing for you. Do you really think that you'd respond well to that?
Well, you're saying Britain. I'm saying the United Nations. I'm saying UNESCO, and I believe that there needs to be obviously a period of discussion at UNESCO to decide what is best for these artifacts. It's not about nations, it's about this world view that these things need to be protected. And if they cannot be protected in their places of origin, if they cannot be protected, then they need to be moved and they need to be taken care of somewhere else. And this is the point at the moment. It's a bit satirical, but you've got to wonder what the Greeks are actually wondering about these marbles. Are they bringing it back because they think it will bring them tourism? Is it going to boost their economy? If so, they probably need it at the moment from what I'm hearing on the news. But the main issue here is that it's not theirs to abuse. That's my argument. It is not theirs to abuse, and it goes the same worldwide. It needs to be taken from an international outlook. What is the best way we can look after these sites and these artifacts? And I do believe that it takes an international approach, not a national approach.
Right, I see. So in some ways you're arguing that the role of archaeologists in this whole debacle and debate should be as trusted, neutral observers who want the best for the child. So perhaps almost like if to continue that child analogy, almost like I suppose a good social worker, someone who's actually looking out for the person or the thing in the middle. I see. Well, okay, I can agree with that to a certain extent, but if you think about the way in which different countries, different areas, and that their nationhood has progressed, and their connections to, for example, their physical history, I can't really think of many countries which haven't at one point or another destroyed something which they then regretted. We, to a certain extent, the international community, if you want to call it that, but certainly Britain, Lord Elgin, also the Earl of Elgin, went so far as to take that choice out of the people of Athens' hands. Do you not think that is a good argument for returning them? The fact that ultimately, for example, in Paris they destroyed things like the Bastille, and there's some very impressive architecture, castles even, which were just flattened. There's one underneath for example, the Louvre, which would have been very impressive if it was still there. Do you not think that these things should actually really just be down to the responsibility and the choices of that nation? We can't protect everything. We can't hold on to everything. And at the moment, hopefully, surely, I mean, it's not like you can just take the Parthenon marbles or the Elgin marbles and put them on the black market. I mean, someone's going to notice if they turn up on eBay.
Certainly. But I mean, we've had similar things go missing in the past, things that we don't know about. For example, there are some fascinating bronzes that have come off ships in the Aegean Sea, and nobody knew about them because they went straight to the black market. Now, even the same group, the International Greek Archaeologists Association, was saying things like, when I walk through the Agora, I see so many sites that need protecting that we can't afford to protect. You know, they're crying out for help, for protection. I'm not saying that we necessarily need to take it away from the location, but we do need to protect it if it's in the best interest and the least expensive way of protecting these sites. But going back to the bronzes, if archaeologists don't know about something that has already hit the black market, then odds are they're not going to see it again until
it turns a bit prestige or something.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right. Okay.
So, or some council decides to sell something off. You get the point. But,
and that and right there, that surely is the crux of the matter. At the moment, Britain internationally has got a very bad reputation, and this is just because of that one sale. And never mind the fact that over the past 200, 300, 400 years, we've just slowly but surely accrued material from other cultures. Recently, in the past couple of months, we have seen a council rather, sell off an artefact which was not really necessarily theirs to sell. Sure, you can argue it was legitimately purchased, although the roots of that are still being investigated. But ultimately, we're talking about an ancient Egyptian artefact, which, when it was made, another purpose could not have been foreseen by the makers. Certainly not going to a British museum. And yet it was being sold in this country. Now, if we're so reckless with the things that we have here, why on earth should the Elgin marbles stay here? I mean, I know you're saying this is not about Britain versus Greece, and to a certain extent you're absolutely right, but you are arguing that they should stay in London. I mean, how do we know that they are actually this is the safest place for them?
Well, like I said before, I'm not saying that they should necessarily stay in London. I am saying that they need to go to a safe location, maybe even, I don't know, Berlin, for example. If they could look after it there, then they should. That's just an example.
Nefertiti. Sorry.
Exactly. Well, this is a problem in its own right, where we have post-colonial issues in the sense of all these countries today are asking for these artefacts back, and they're saying, well, it's part of our cultural heritage. One could argue that, well, no, it's not. There are other ethnic groups and smaller groups that it may have been a part of, but it wasn't part of the entirety of what Egypt is today, for example. Do they have the right to ask for those back? I believe so. On some artefacts, yes, they would. But when it concerns issues where they're only asking for it back for presumably tourism and profit, that I actually cringe at, because I don't think it's, like I said, it's no country's right to ask for heritage back as a resource just to sell it for tourism, especially if there is even the slightest chance that they could get damaged. As for keeping the Elgin marbles in Britain, I cannot tell you if that is the safest place for them. If they have been damaged in the past 100 years, like most artefacts, I would say, in some way or another, even Tutankhamun, which today, in this modern era, when Egypt still has control of it, the body still gets damaged occasionally, or has been damaged occasionally. So there's lots of things to think about in that respect. But the actual decision here is not black and white. It's not give it back to Greece because it belongs to Greece. There is no clear answer to that. And I think the only people that can take it from here is UNESCO, and to say maybe we should make a museum of international antiques and grab all these things from all these countries, stick them at one location, a mutual location where they can be all looked after properly and funded properly so everyone can see them. You know, maybe it should be in Switzerland. Who knows? Maybe it should be in the middle of Africa.
Well, true, but then you say that, but then the people, for example, from Athens. Sure, arguably they can get access to the Parthenon Marbles if they get a flight to London and look at them. But Switzerland? Why Switzerland? I mean, sure, but why not? Actually, why not have a floating museum? A museum that floats from place to place? And no. I'm being facetious. I really am. But I do know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I suppose the problem is that no one's going to agree to that. And there's a really strong and stark problem here, and that is actually in the case of, say, the British Museum. Legally, it is illegal to take anything out of that museum. Conveniently, a law was passed that says essentially everything in the museum is the museum's property, ad nauseam, irrevocably.
You're talking about just inanimate objects.
Well, yeah, hopefully not people. Yeah, you can't, you can't go in and just be nabbed by the government, right, you're ours.
I am sick of people using this idea, using nationalistic fervour to say we need to bring them back when they're really just worried about their back pockets and going, if we get the Elgin marbles back, well, we could make, another 120,000 euros a year to inject into the economy because people will come and see them. Well, that's not best practice. There is not an archaeologist in the world, I would think, that would agree that you should move an artifact back based on that.
And I suppose it's not as though the movement of the artifact is a guaranteed safe trip. Yeah, that is itself dangerous, I suppose. Yes, yeah. Okay, Rhys. Well, I think we've had quite a discussion about this, and I look forward to seeing what people say below. I suspect that we'll have some fairly heated comments going off the previous Elgin Marbles video that we've done. I would encourage those of you who are watching at home to keep the comments civil, and as far as possible, debate the issue. Don't just say return them now, they were stolen, because that's not really a discussion. That's just shouting your opinion.
I was just going to say that all these views and opinions that we express as well are trying to actually cover the larger community. They're not just expressed by ourselves and always believed by ourselves. These aren't just our opinions, they're the opinions of a lot of different areas. So please don't just assume.
Well, certainly I've been playing devil's advocate, and in the case of Rhys, I know that you've been making the argument as a cold-blooded archaeologist rather than as a passionate human being. So yeah, so don't just attack Rhys or myself. We've been debating the issue. We haven't been staking our claim on them. Okay, guys. Well, as ever, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, do take care. And to you, Rhys, thank you for your time. Bye bye.
Cheerio. See ya.